Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 200, part two of Bill Man the Sport Guys podcast. I'm your host, Bill Man the Sports Guy. Guys, I have a very special guest joining today for part two. It is Scott Braun, who does a baseball podcast called Foul Territory with baseball legends such as AJ Brzezinski, Todd Frazier, Cameron Mabrin, Eric Kratz, Trevor May, Jonathan Papelbon, and also writer Ken Rosenthal. And he also does another show called Hot Sheet. So in this one, Scott and I get to talk about a bit about the baseball offseason, which moves surprised us, and we got to some fun baseball questions at the end. So you're really gonna like this episode. Stay tuned and let me know. Always let me know your thoughts and opinions on Twitter at Billman Sports, Instagram at Billman Sports Guy, and here on YouTube. Guys, this is a special treat. Joining me is a host from Foul Territory and another baseball show by Hot Sheet, Scott Braun. Scott, thank you so much for joining.
Billy, great to see you. Great to be on here.
All right. So, my first question is baseball's back. It's about time. How excited are you that the season is actually here?
I am very excited. I look forward to opening day, but then I also look forward to day two of the season. I know some people treat it like a holiday and then they kind of forget about baseball for a little bit of time, but not for the lifers and the people that are in the everyday grind of following the sport, grind in a good way. For players, obviously, sometimes they mention it where it's tough for them to weather the storm of performing every day. We're fans, so we just get to have fun and get content and get games every single day. So for us at Foul Territory, we have a different level of content to cover versus just going over transactions. We get to now recap games and go over drama and storylines that are happening on the field. So, of course, I'm very pumped.
Same here because as a sports fan overall, I feel like I always hit a point where we're like, okay, start the season. What the heck? And then when it finally comes, we're like, it's happening. All right. Was there any move in the offseason that surprised you in a good and a disappointing way? If you want to name one or two.
In a good way, I would say Juan Soto getting that much money for his wallet is wild. And for Mets fans, it's rare that they can pick up a win like this in a transaction over the Yankees. You really, in the past, didn't see the Yankees go up against the Mets or really vice versa for a free agent like this. This was a true heavyweight fight, and I felt like the underdog actually won the fight. I thought he was going there all along. You can go back and track me for a year plus, but it still was surprising to finally actually see this happen and to see the final number. I do think the number's wild and great for him, but also great for Mets fans because the money's not your problem. And they get to finally get a player in his prime who was just on the Yankees and win him over to Queens, as well as put them in a really good position to succeed for the next decade plus with the lineup that they're going to be able to put together around him. So that was really cool. Disappointment wise, I think Nick Pivetta is going to have a really good season for the Padres. So I would say there are going to be many teams that are disappointed that they didn't pick him up and offer a change of scenery for someone like him who had been with Boston for several years. And I think he's going to thrive with the Padres. So I would say that's one that pops up. Team wise, I've been pretty hard on the Orioles for their, in my mind, lack of top end starters. I love Grayson Rodriguez. So I think he fits the mold there. I like Eflin, but I do think they're a top starter short. And they had one last year in Corbin Burns. He left, and they didn't pick anyone up to replace him. So I think that's going to be a tough spot for them, both during the season and even if they make the playoffs. It's not a super intimidating rotation. They chose to spend a lot of their money on the back end of their rotation, which I think could hurt them. Shigano, Charlie Morton, I don't see that making a huge impact for them. And if anything, they could turn into both being below average starters and hurting them in what looks like one of the better divisions in baseball, full of offense. So I was pretty disappointed to see them not land one of the big names like a Max Fried or bringing Burns back, or they, I'm curious, I'm sure made an offer to Garrett Crochet, but should have outbid the Red Sox. I mean, the Red Sox can keep up with them prospect wise these days, but I would have been curious to hear why Baltimore didn't make a bigger push for Crochet and what their final offer was.
You kind of touched in one area I was going to go with. Corbin Burns of the Arizona Diamondbacks. In my opinion, like, yes, for some of the big names, we always expect the Dodgers, the Yankees, probably the Red Sox. I don't want to throw the Mets as one of them, although they're finally waking up. But for me, it was just cool to see an underrated team like the Arizona Diamondbacks kind of surprise and go, surprise, we got him. I thought that
Yeah,
was
that's a good
neat.
call. Yeah.
Disappointing. Uh, I got to go with the Blue Jays. I felt like, I don't know why. I think it's just more that part of me feels like that they just didn't try hard enough. Like I know they were in the sweeps for Bellinger. They were in the sweeps for Otani last year. I believe they were in on another free agent 2 years ago, if my memory is not
They
mistaken.
were in on Soto. They were in on Roki Sasaki. They just didn't land the big name, but they did do some things this offseason. Jeff Hoffman for the bullpen. Anthony Santander, I think, is a nice piece for the lineup. They're aiming for players that they need to pay more to keep up with in a sweepstakes. And I don't understand how their front office gets involved on a player and thinks that he's going to go there for market price or less. Right. That to me is weird. I mean, Andrew Friedman of the Dodgers, their president of baseball operations, had a really good line maybe 5, 6 years ago. You are always going to finish, in second or third place on a free agent if you don't go crazy for him, right? Because whatever you have on his value is what other teams are going to have. And the team that goes above that price is going to land that big fish. So I don't think Otani was ever choosing anything but the Dodgers. I think Roki Sasaki wasn't choosing anywhere but the Dodgers. But I mean, Soto, for example, perfect case. Okay. He ends up with 765 guaranteed, could be more. If the Blue Jays really wanted him that badly, like they were going to have to throw 850, something like that. And they didn't do that. So for them I think they stopped at like 700. So you can think that it's crazy, but that's what he ended up getting. The market said this player at this moment is worth this. And they've actually botched that price and that process with Vladdy Jr. for a while now. And I think there's a decent chance they end up still getting him, but they could have locked him up 3, 4, 5 years ago for a much, much better price that would have helped the organization being able to, find other talent. But oh well, I mean, that's on that front office. They have not been successful during their run.
This actually brings me back from the last time you and I spoke. I'll give you credit. You called it because I asked if you think Soto's going to land more money than Otani, and he got a little more than Otani did. So I'll give you that.
Yeah, he got a lot more than Otani did. Soto? Just remember, Otani's net present value contract was in the mid 400s. Soto almost doubled that.
Almost $1 billion. All right. So a little context for our audience. So for the Tampa Bay Rays, for anybody who isn't sure what's going on with them or is wondering what the heck is going on with them. So there was a huge hurricane and it took down the roof of Tropicana Field, like completely destroyed it. And then there was this huge beef going on between Peter Steinbrenner and Rob Manfred of Major League Baseball. So my question is, will the Rays stay in Tampa Bay? Or are they going to move? And the one thing I'm still having a hard time understanding as a baseball fan is if Rob Manfred and the other owners are pushing Steinbrenner, why did John Fisher not get that exact treatment? This is something that I'll never understand.
Fisher's more well liked by the fraternity, clearly, than Stu Sternberg is. Will they stay? I think they'll stay in Tampa Bay. I hope that it'll end up in Tampa versus St. Petersburg, but I don't know. I mean, right now it's in flux again. It's been like this for a couple decades with both of those teams. I cannot believe how long this has lasted. But sure, if I had to make a prediction, I still think that they'll end up in that area to some capacity. They do still have years left on their deal to stay in the Trop, which I think the city is obligated to fix, even though it's a dump. And I'd say the second most likely place is Orlando, where obviously AJ and myself, Brzezinski and myself, are rooting for since we live there. But and I think it would be a better location. I do think that The place that has the most tourists in the country would value having a team there when Disney kind of quiets down when you get to the early evening and you can hit a game.
And let's also, I mean, if we're going to go off of Orlando, let's not forget Universal and SeaWorld. That's also there. And one thing I want to throw in really quick. Do you think all stadiums should have a dome? I know there's some teams that do, but why I want to throw this out is if you have a dome, it takes away rain delay. You don't have to worry about rescheduling another day. If you put a dome on before the rain, problem solved.
Retractable roof. Every ballpark should have a retractable roof. Easiest question ever to answer, of course.
Yeah.
Now that it's much more expensive, but I mean, that's not our job. But yes, every ballpark should have a roof, no doubt.
And I understand from some fans that Wrigley Field, Fenway Park, two historic ballparks, yeah, it may look weird, but hey, if it doesn't rain, or as long as you put the roof before it rains, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, retractable roof is the answer, but I mean, it's going to be case by case. You hope that most parks get it, but in most cases, it's so damn expensive that owners are not going to go that route. And unfortunately, we suffer from it.
All right. So I really wanted to ask this since at the end of the day, you are on a podcast with former Major League players. If Scott Braun was a Major League Baseball player, what position you would be, and what would your walk-up song be?
First base, because I'm a lefty, so I played first base and really liked it in Little League. And then my walk-up song would be a track called "Do You Know Where Your Children Are?" because I am the voice on that track. It is a house music track from Chris Lake and Chris Lorenzo. So if you look it up on Apple or Spotify, their duo is called Ante Up, and that's obviously where I'd have to roll. And it's got a pretty good beat after not my singing, it's my broadcasting. So I'll encourage anyone else to just check out the song and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay. For me, I would say shortstop because of a former White Sox player that's my all-time favorite, Alexi Ramirez. But I would also say right hand, anywhere in the outfield and first base because I am also a lefty at the end of the day for my softball team at Special Olympics. My walk-up song, give me 515 by The Who, but specifically the live version from 2000 where John Entwistle, the bass player, did the bass solo that blew everyone away. I have dreamed before that it would be so cool just to like walk up and just hear that bass like blasted so loud.
That's awesome. Well, you should have your team play
If I could somehow encourage my coach to get a little radio and have our own walk-up songs.
it. Hey, you got to give it a shot. Shoot your shot, coach. Or even for just even just for, when you guys do BP or sim game or something like that.
I mean, one fact about me, there's like 6, 7 songs I listen to before every basketball and softball game that I tend to listen to.
That's cool.
Yeah. So you've you've interviewed many players, and I've also done a few interviews, but I'm curious to know who's your all-time dream interview?
Somebody I've interviewed or somebody I would like to interview?
Somebody that you would like to interview, like a baseball and maybe non-baseball.
So for baseball, I'll mention someone who recently passed away. I believe it was in December. I was a big fan of Ricky Henderson as a player and as a talker. So I feel like that would have been a fun interview because you're always getting a real take and a unique take, and usually a joke or two, whether it's intentional or not. He was super entertaining. So I would say Ricky Henderson fits the bill for me in terms of an interview. By the time I got into baseball broadcasting and baseball media, he was out of the league. And I just never came across him from what I can remember. I mean, I watched him play some games in person, but yeah, I never spent any time with him for an interview. So that one stands out. Outside of baseball, my favorite player growing up in basketball was Kobe Bryant. So I would enjoy a combo with Kobe as well. Those are some easy ones for me. And obviously both are not with us anymore, but I would have had a good time with both of them. Current player wise, I mean, the one guy that I just think we're going to have the hardest time with for our foul territory existence is Shohei Ohtani. So if we can ever get Ohtani to sit down and give us real time, I don't want the on-field interview for a few minutes. Like I don't need a lot of time, 5-10 minutes, but I need it in a more relaxed environment to be able to ask him a few fun questions and try and get to know Shohei and give the foul territory touch to the interview.
Nice. I've had it's hard for me to list like one athlete. Uh Ones who sadly left us. I would do Minnie Minoso. I've met him a couple times while I was younger, and he was a super nice guy, one of the nicest. And I'll also throw in Ed Farmer, who was a longtime radio host for the White Sox. Um, on one non-hockey one, I'm a big Blackhawks fan, so Tony Esposito would be one. Um, One of the greatest goaltenders to not only goalie for the Hawks, but for the NHL. Currently, it's hard for me to list one White Sox player because there's so many I've liked, but a couple. I'll mention your teammates, AJ Przinsky and Todd Frazier, and I'll do the Big Hurt as well. Non-White Sox, give me Big Poppy, David Ortiz, and currently Bryce Harper, the Phillies. One non-hockey, I got to do Patrick Kane of the Detroit Red Wings. I've always been a big Patrick Kane fan growing up, and I've loved everything about him in hockey. So to get Patrick Kane and all the other athletes I've listed would legit be a dream come true for me.
It's a good
All right.
list. Very thorough. I like it.
Yes. And then next one. So foul territory has been on for 2 years. On a joking matter, 2 years less than me. LOL. But my point is, what's the growth that you've seen since foul territory started? And what's your ultimate goal with foul territory? Like, for example, like to get yourself on a live TV channel, or maybe do it from a cool place like the Empire State Building, just to name one as an example.
So our goal is to follow our mission statement, which is baseball the way it should be covered. I felt like baseball was missing a forum like ours to be able to provide people an authentic player perspective, but also an authentic insider perspective. Ken Rosenthal, former GMs like Jim Bowden, former manager Buck Showalter, etc. Right, to create the ideal modern network and then build around it with podcasts, with shows on YouTube, and like you mentioned, with television shows as well. So we're currently Foul Territory on 16 regional television networks, which is awesome. So, and that includes in Chicago, we're on Marquee almost every day with the live shows. So that part's been really cool to reach as many different people on the platforms that they like to consume. And then the growth is to just keep expanding with different ideas and concepts. Recently, we've been on a long run of creating new team shows. So we have 16 total shows under the Foul Territory Network, and that number keeps growing really every couple months or so. Another show gets unveiled. So we have almost half the league now, team show wise. And it's often a show that's already existed that we'll bring under our umbrella. And I want to be able to hit baseball fans in a variety of ways where they feel like they're not getting enough content, or they want more from their particular team, or of course with Foul Territory from the entire league, hitting stories that also go beyond just what's happening on the field, like the business perspective as well. So yeah, I love what we're doing, and I always make sure that I don't focus too much on the end goal, and I'm doing that right now. We're baseball the way it should be covered. Enjoy covering the game like this every day. Keep growing the game, keep growing the FT network, and enjoy the ride.
Nice. And I've been watching it since it started. Keep up the good work. Love
I
the work.
appreciate that. But yeah, we love seeing your comments in the chat. You know your ball, and it's cool to always obviously get your thoughts, your questions, your comments. And as you've heard, sometimes we're able to bring those onto the show either with our hosts or with a player. So we always see everything. We're doing a million things at once, but it really does mean a lot. And that is another component for me, is I really really love the community of a live audience during a show. Comments afterward, great too, but during a show, it's really cool for me. I used to call the game of the week for MLB and YouTube back when that existed during that partnership. And, and some people would get pissed off that, I was bringing on comments and questions during the game. And I'm like, sorry, to me, that is something that I think really is needed in more broadcasts. You can still call the game exactly the way you want to call it. But hey, there's some people that have really interesting things to say. Can we sprinkle that in so that we feel like we're connecting with fans and asking and talking about the things that they want us to talk about?
All right. So one of the things I wanted to do that I thought would be fun is if we could react to each other's power rankings. For me, I did one prior to the season, like I've done for the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL. So I don't have 11 through 30 yet. Stay tuned for a future episode because I'm willing to draw some crowd reactions. So my top 10 before the season. Don't be surprised at number one, I have the Dodgers. I know, I know. Surprise, not really. Number two, the Phillies. Number three, the Baltimore Orioles. Number four, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Number five, the Atlanta Braves. Number six, the New York Mets. Number seven, the Texas Rangers. Number eight, the Milwaukee Brewers. Number nine, the Chicago Cubs. And number 10, the Boston Red Sox. All right, Scott, I'm ready for you to grill me.
Well, I mean, obviously now we're a week into the season when we're doing this. The Braves haven't won a game as of the time that we're doing this show. So, but I don't have any criticism on you putting them in there before the season starts. They had a gauntlet of a first 7 games. I was going to be surprised if they started out hot. I think that they're going to pick up steam as the season goes on because their best pitchers out and their best position players out. Ronald Acuna Jr. should be back in a month-ish. Spencer Strider should be back in around the same time period. So I think they're going to be okay. They just might not win the division. I think the Phillies have a more complete regular season team. That doesn't mean the Braves can't win a World Series, right? They can, you know how baseball works. They can click at the right time, sneak in as playoff wildcard team, and then all of a sudden go on a sick run. So I think Atlanta's, of course, got a lot of work to do. I'm not critical there. For me, entering the year, I would say the one towards the top that I would immediately pick at is Baltimore, just because I don't see the starting staff at that caliber. I think there are a number of National League teams that are better than any American League team entering the season. And now a week in, I still feel that way, if not more so, right? Mets, Phillies, Braves, Cubs, maybe you can make a case for Milwaukee and Cincinnati as well. And then Padres, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, all to me can make a case that they are better than any American League team.
I think the Padres is my one surprise right now. I will say they were out of my top 10 because I was more concerned from a pitching depth standpoint. Like obviously they have a 41-year-old Yu Darvish. They have Nick Pivetta. How is he going to do in San Diego? Dylan Cease, ex-White Sox, by the way, and he's still doing good, which is good to see. But my main reason for the Padres, it was just more of a pitching depth I was a little concerned about.
And you weren't the only one. I mean, many people were doubting the Padres entering the year. And again, it's super early, but they're off to a sizzling start. For me, when I did my power rankings right before the season started, I had them at 6, and I felt like I was the high guy there. And I was confused as to why so many people wrote them off after, yes, a more quiet offseason for them. But it's not like they did nothing. And they did pick up Pivetta, like we mentioned. Most of their offense is intact and it's good. I mean, you're getting Tatis in his prime. Machado still should be really, really good in the league for the next several years, right? He's not an old man. Jackson Merrill looks like a star. Luis Ariz is the best contact hitter in baseball, right there. Bottom of the lineup has question marks. So do many others. So I just think with the top end starters like your boy Cease, who looks great, and the lineup that they have, defense should be pretty solid even without Hassan Kim, that they're going to be in a good spot. So I think they're going to be contenders. Are they going to win the division? Probably not. Dodgers win the division basically every year, but the Padres look like a very serious wild card threat that would be a pain to deal with in the playoffs if their bullpen is humming at that particular time, because you can throw out Cease and King as your top 2 starters, and I think they can keep up with anyone.
Yeah, even when I saw your list, Padres was my big question mark, but now looking at it now, I'm like, it's got a point. And speaking of Dylan Cease, shout out to Kevin Sheets. He homered on opening day. against the
Yeah,
Braves.
Sheets has been good for them. Yeah, he needed a change of scenery too. He'd been with the White Sox for a minute, and the Padres are a new opportunity for him on a much more competitive team now.
Yeah, and even looking at the White Sox now, I can't complain. I liked what I saw. Under Will Venable, I believe in them more, other than Pedro Grifol, which I don't need to be reminded that didn't go too well. And last season was a disaster. Bad enough to where at times I would turn on one off topic, one show I recommend for our audience is Only Murders in the Building, or I would turn on a YouTube game where the White Sox were good because darn it, I miss those days.
There you go. Yes, it was an historically awful season, kind of like a car wreck where you feel really bad, but you can't look away when you're passing by.
Um, Heck, if I was manager, I would take you and AJ in my staff in a heartbeat.
I appreciate that. I don't think you want me in the dugout, but I would take a front office role. I feel like I could be more helpful there, and AJ managing a team would be awesome. I don't think he'll ever do it. I think he has an inclination of maybe wanting to try it out, but I mean he's a family man too. I wonder how he would want to balance the time, but I know there are many people in White Sox fandom that would love to see him there. I, of course, would love to see him manage the White Sox someday, although I would not wish that on him right now. Right now, this is not the roster that you want to manage yet. They're on the 7-year plan or whatever they call it these days, and it's going to take some time for them to have an adequate roster.
Yeah, I mean, AJ's White Sox manager, sign me up. All right. So before we go, Scott, you and I have been doing podcasts. You've been doing it since Foul Territory started, and probably before, if I'm wrong, please correct me on that. And I've been doing my
15
own.
years.
How
Yeah.
many?
15.
Woo! Dang, a lot longer than
Yeah.
me. I've been doing it since 2021.
Well, I've
Um,
probably got a few years on you too, Billy.
See, this is what I love about podcasts at times. It's just the vibe, the good vibes. This is what makes it good.
I'm with you.
Is there any advice you want to give to our audience on maybe someone who wants to start a podcast but isn't sure, or anyone like me who wants to get into the broadcasting degree, but maybe isn't sure on the direction?
I would say be yourself is the top thing because that's what a podcast or a digital show allows you to do now more than ever because it's usually something that's more independently run and you can do it the way that you want to do it. Take feedback from your audience. What do they like? What do they want to see more of? Look at metrics, right? Numbers are your friends. What are our fans saying, right? What videos are they clicking? Doesn't always mean that's where you should tilt the conversation, but it is a good indicator of what your community is enjoying from you. And it depends on who you are, right? If you're someone that's just saying, hey, I want to talk about what I want to talk about, that's okay. But also for us, we will often look at what people want us to talk about, which goes back to the live chat and question and answer portion of things and say, oh, wow, a ton of people clicked into this particular clip that we put out there or this particular podcast episode that we put out there. What did we talk about? Okay. Clearly there's interest in that topic. And sometimes you'll learn, right? It's the business of baseball, at least for us, where we're like, okay, a lot of people do want to hear more about that or baseball media. So we're able to go down a direction like that, which I enjoy doing anyway. So I would say be yourself, listen to your audience, enjoy it, relax, take a deep breath and have fun with it. Cause like I said, you got to enjoy the journey as well. And if you want to make a career out of it, you also have to be persistent and consistent and do things, I think, in baseball every single day. Every day you're putting something out there or you're thinking about what your next move is or what skill set that you should be working on to learn, right? Is it editing? Is it audio? Is it doing something in person at live events for shows or for podcasts? There's so many jobs in sports media that I think get overlooked because a lot of people are looking to do the same thing. And really, there are still less than there used to be, but many more jobs behind the scenes than there are, in front of the camera or tablet or whatever people are using these days to record.
All very good advice. I've been doing my podcast for the past 4 years, and I know I was discussing with one of the fan base, one of the Foul Territory fans in the chat, because he was asking me a few questions. Some advice I also want to give out is number one, do not be afraid to reach out to anybody. I'm going to say it right now. Don't be afraid. You're going to get a yes. You're going to get a no. I've been fortunate and lucky enough to interview Scott twice now. I've done Matt Bowen, former NFL safety and current ESPN analyst, a few times. I've also gotten Don Paul, who pitched for the White Sox in the late 80s, early 90s, a couple times. Um, and I'll admit, I've been rejected twice. And Scott, I'm sure you've been rejected too.
I
Uh,
can't believe you've been rejected twice, Billy. And I mean that in a good way because most of the time it's like 2,000 rejections and a few yeses. And I remember, back when I was doing things in college and, I'd ask people, for their time and I'd get plenty of no's. And I learned from my sisters who are actresses, who, now have good careers. But when they were first going to auditions, if you audition for a Broadway show, you might audition for a year or two and go to 3, 4, 5 auditions a day. So you're talking about thousands of no's before you get one yes. So you got a great success rate.
yeah. I don't want to take a shot at anybody in a bad way, but the people I've been rejected, Ozzie Guillen. I love Ozzie. I love the work he does, but I got rejected. I also got rejected by Brendan Perlini, a 6-year NHL veteran who at one point played with Chicago. But it's fine because the one way I look at it is at least I asked. There's nothing bad about it.
No.
And the one part you said, which I agree with, be yourself and also go with what's going to entertain your audience. Like I know Foul Territory and Bill Mann Sports Guy. Like Foul Territory is a 2-hour show. I'm about average 10, 30-minute show because do not bore your audience and always go with big topics that you know that's gonna wow, I just blanked. That's gonna like entertain your audience. Like,
Yeah.
example, you guys mentioned the Jerickson Profar suspension. That was crazy big. I I know I'm in one of my next episodes. I'm actually going to mention the Eugenio Suarez extension because it's a big topic. And I'm also going to do my bracket soon for NBA and NHL playoffs. That's a big topic. So overall, don't be afraid to reach out because you're always going to get a yes and you're always going to get a no. And learn from at least you asked. Nothing wrong with it. Um, Go with whatever time makes sense for you and to not bore your audience. And also go with big topics. Sports is always big topics. And even though I'm still in college and I still want to be a broadcaster at the end of the day, maybe try to go with whatever sport works best. Like for me, right now, I'm trying to shoot for baseball and hockey because I'm trying to improve my knowledge. I'm still trying to improve my knowledge on all four, but I feel like baseball and hockey are kind of up there. And I like the idea of maybe do hockey in the fall up to spring, baseball spring to fall, like a yearly around. I mean, not too many do that nowadays.
You're versatile and you're obviously putting a lot out there too, content wise. So you also, the more you do, the more you find yourself and feel more comfortable. And that's what I tried to do in college too, is put out as much into the content that I was doing every day and to do it as much as possible so that I felt more comfortable speaking. And you're doing it. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. And also set yourself some goals. Like
Mhm.
for the quick example, NJC Journalism Awards, I actually took second place last year. And I took third
Wow.
year before. So now for me, now the goal is to try to get to first. And also, if you want to become a journalist, do it. Don't hesitate. I personally, shout out to my boss, Jim Fuller and B Bishop. Scott, I actually took a crack at writing stories. I've wrote 2 so far, and I don't plan on stopping because it
Hey,
all helps on expanding your knowledge.
writing is huge for obviously developing your brain, your voice, and there are many people that could use more writing tutelage, especially nowadays in the way that the world works and social media works. Good writing is really important and can help you in almost anything, especially in media.
Easily. All right, Scott, thank you so much for joining. It has been a blast having you on the podcast.
Thank you, Billy. Great job. Great to talk to you. Thanks for supporting Foul Territory and great job on your own show. Have a good day and enjoy the rest of baseball season.
All right, my pleasure. Go White Sox. And thank you for tuning in to episode number 200, part 2 of Bill Man the Sport Guys podcast. I'm your host, Bill Man the Sports Guy. I'm very thankful for every single one of you who has listened to this podcast since I started it, which was about 4 years ago. And I don't plan on stopping. So we're now on the march to 300. So thank you again. And I love doing podcasts. So for the latest news of the NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL, this is the podcast to be. Stay tuned for episode number 201. Peace.